Hey there, and welcome to today's episode of A Fan Perspective. And we are going to be reviewing Zack Snyder's Justice League. Now, before we get started on the review, I just want to break it down to you of how we are going to be grading this. First, we're going to go ahead and take a critical look at it in terms of, the goods and bads of that the critics are saying critically, just how good this movie is or how bad it is. And after that, we are going to jump into the mind of a fan. We are going to provide that fan perspective of whether or not it serves up to what the fans are expecting. Now, let's get this started. I'm going to go ahead and start with the bads on this movie, just because that way by the end of the video you have a better taste of it in your mouth. So the first thing I noticed, there were a lot of unnecessary scenes. I didn't, spoiler alert, I'm sure most of you have already seen the video by now, or the movie by now, so, there are going to be spoilers throughout this whole video. So, the first thing I noticed a lot was there are a lot of unnecessary scenes in this movie. All right, for example, the one that made me cringe a little bit, just a little bit, is that Scandinavian lady that was singing when Aquaman, was going way back into the ocean. I get it. Zack Snyder has told us before. He's told us that this is supposed to be a Justice League where all the superheroes are basically gods among men. And I get that. I get that. But at the same time, is it really necessary for us to see it that way? I mean, it's already implied. Whenever you imply something, you don't necessarily need to prove it in any other way. You could have had, like, I don't know, some drawing on the wall of Aquaman when he's coming in, and, Batman looks at that beforehand, and he's like, whoa, okay, so this guy is seen as a god. And that's without even telling us. That whole show, not tell type of perspective. That would have been all right. And that's just one of a few scenes that really bothered me, to where it's like, man, do we really have to watch this? Do we really have to see the scene? Does it really make sense in the movie? Do we really have to sit there for 2 to 3 minutes looking at that? The second thing that I found that's flawed with this movie is, the overused music. Now, the first time we see Wonder Woman, and all right, how can I go about this? Alright, first, I'll just go ahead and let you know that there's a lot of music montages in here that I don't think, and this goes hand in hand with the whole unnecessary scenes. I don't really need to see music videos per, Justice League member. It's cool to have the little theme behind them playing, but it's another thing to where you spend 2 to 3 minutes of slow motion with that music going on in the background. It's just unnecessary, and I think it takes away from the movie just a little bit. And on top of that, when it comes to overuse of music, there's one particular one I'm talking about, and I think everyone noticed that when the movie was going on. It is that Amazonian theme. It was badass the first time we heard it when Wonder Woman showed up. It fit the mood great. Then the second time it played when the Amazons were fighting against Steppenwolf. Okay, makes sense. It seems like it's an Amazon theme more than it is a Wonder Woman theme. But then after that, it shows up again and again and again and again, especially when the entire Justice League crew is fighting together, and Wonder Woman's theme, because of that whole part, it really takes it away from that scene, and it kind of makes you go like, I don't know. It just kept on taking me out, because by that time I was already tired of the music, and instead of enjoying that fight at the end, I was bothered by the music just as much. Now, the last thing that I thought that was, bad for this movie is the CGI. Now, the CGI, well, actually, second to last. CGI in this movie is subpar. It's not horrible by any means, don't get me wrong, but I do see some parts where it's like, man, they could have polished it a little bit more. Maybe they would have spent a little bit more of their budget on the CGI. That would have made it just a little bit better. But it wasn't too bad, but it was bad enough to where you can notice the flaws when it is present. Now, the last thing that I have a problem about with this movie is the amount of slow-mo. It is not slow-mo, it is the amount of slow-mo. And trust me when I say amount of slow-mo, it is overdone, right? With the music montages. Now I'll get it with the Flash, you know, even in the show or anything, anytime you're trying to show a speedster, slow-mo is necessary, so I get that. That's completely fine. But when you play when Aquaman's just taking off into the ocean, when he's just standing there, when you gotta, you know, there's just so much CGI when the Amazons are fighting Steppenwolf and they're trying to hit those stone things in to seal the gates. Was that necessary for slow-mo? I don't think so, but it is Zack Snyder. He loves his slow-mo, so that's to be expected. However, if I'm being critical, please lessen that over time. Now, for the good part, if you were to be critiquing this movie and you are going to go ahead and overlook the over dramatic themes and everything, there are a lot of great things about this movie too. First of all, the music. I know some of it is overplayed, but the music choices overall are really great, and I think they fit each scene very well, and particularly when they're trying to tell the mood, especially when the Man of Steel or the Batman themes come on, you get the chills, man. You get the chills. Now, the music fits great, and I think only if they didn't overuse some of it, it probably would have lasted a little bit better in my head. You know, I wouldn't have been a little annoyed by the whole Amazonian music by the end of the movie. I would have enjoyed it a lot more. Now, the action in this movie is top notch. I personally believe that this is one of the best action scenes. Some of the action scenes I've seen in this are some of my favorite of any, you know, comic book movie, whether it's Marvel or DC. You know, and I have to give credit where it's due, and the action was very well done, but just like the slow-mo stuff, that's to be expected of Zack Snyder. The man just knows how to do scenery when it comes to action. Now the second thing, or the third thing, I apologize, is going to be the story continuity. If you watch Man of Steel, and then you put on Batman vs. Superman, and then you put on this movie, you will see that they all just feel like one continuous story, which is great, which is what you would want from comic book movies, especially when you're trying to establish a universe of sorts, or not even a universe, when you're trying to establish, you know, a storyline, what these characters are going through. It is great at that. If you were to go ahead and rewatch Batman vs. Superman, take a look at the nightmare scene, and then combine it with the two nightmare scenes in this one, it's making sense now, and we are getting a direction of where it's heading next, if it ever heads next. Now, another thing I would like to point out is the character development. The character development, I think, is very overlooked when it comes to this movie, and I think it is criminal to leave out the character development. Now, 3 movies in, I think the first time we all saw Man of Steel, we were all questioning, man, why is Superman not being Superman? Why is he, you know, depressed all the time and all that stuff? But then you watch Man of Steel, it makes sense. You know, the guy came here unwillingly growing up, you know, with these problems that he was never really explained anything about, nor anyone can explain to him about. And then when he finds out about his powers, then Zod and everyone is there. Now he has to choose between his people, the last of his people, between killing off Zod, who is the last of his people so far as Superman knows, over saving the people that have bullied him his entire life. Now that is a choice that I don't think all of us would make the same as Superman did, so I give kudos there, because that is a critical choice that was made that pays off in the next 2 movies. Now, Batman vs. Superman comes. You know, I remember when Man of Steel came, by the end of it, everyone complained. Man, there was just so much destruction. Superman probably killed more than he saved, blah, blah, blah. But you have to remember, he was Superman, but he wasn't our Superman yet. And in Batman vs. Superman, he is slowly turning into our Superman, only to see Batman only see the Superman we all saw in Man of Steel, where it's just, man, that's too much destruction. I need to control this guy. I need to make sure he doesn't cause any more destruction. So he dies, fighting Doomsday, which showed his heroics to not only Batman, but to the whole world. Now you come into Justice League, he comes back, and he's saying he has a second chance. And he's not, when he said, Lois, I'm not going to, take it for granted, he's basically talking about that he's now going to be our Superman. He is going to be saving the people he loves for the people he loves. And then even Batman, we all hated having Batman versus Superman. He was using guns and killing people, even though I always argued that he's done that in the comics, but the majority of the general public does not acknowledge him as that. And I understand there is, a certain rule that he does go by without guns. So I get it. But we have to understand that this Batman, we're not supposed to know the full backstory other than unless you know what happens in the comics. This Batman was bruised. He was just, out of it. He's lost with reality. He does not want to be Batman, but he's being forced to fight this alien. And when this alien dies saving everyone, he gives up that whole gun rule. He becomes Batman again. And that is in here. You see him talking about how he has faith in team now. He went from being a loner who doesn't believe anyone, who's just tired of the world, to being someone who loves the world now, who believes in team. And Cyborg, man, just in this movie, his character development is huge. He goes from a guy who always felt alone, that he had no home, that he shouldn't be there. But by the end of the movie, he knows his worth. He knows he can contribute to the world that he couldn't as Victor Stone. And so there is a lot of character development that I give a lot of credit for. And I think a lot of more people should really look into that and give the credit where it's due. Now, the last thing I want to point out for this movie is the setup for the future DCEU, the potential setup. We know this is going into the whole infamous storyline of Injustice League. We know that, this is going to go into the multiverse. We saw that when, Barry went back in time and we saw Cyborg and everyone being resurrected because the team failed. The team actually lost that final battle against Steppenwolf and Darkseid, where the mother box actually exploded. Now, Barry creating another timeline, creates two separate ones. I already pitched kind of my idea of where they can go from here. Please check out my other video my first video I uploaded for the DCEU. It's a pitch I would love to make, and I would love to hear your thoughts about it. Now, with that being said, I, as a critic, would give this movie an 8.5 out of 10. Now, as a fan, now from the fan perspective, this is what this channel is about. I'm not going to just go ahead and tell you what the critical grade is. I'm also going to tell you what a fan's grade would be. For me, if I'm coming here loving Zack Snyder's work, Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, this movie is the peak right now. All right, this movie is a straight up 10 out of 10 if you're into Zack Snyder's vision, if you're into the Snyderverse, if you've been loving it so far. If you're coming in as a fan of more comedy, more of lightheartedness, this still may not be a movie for you. It is going to be in the same tone, although a lighter tone, but it is going to be in the same. It's kind of hard to explain. It's like Batman vs. Superman, but with a lighter tone. There is comedy in here and everything in here, but I could just tell you, if you don't like Zack Snyder's vision, if you don't like his directing style, you still will not like this movie. I, however, being a fan of comic books, absolutely loved it. Other than the unnecessary things that I think that were on there, as a fan, I was very pleased, and I highly recommend you to watch it. Like I said, as a fan, 10 out of 10. As a critic, it will be 8.5 out of 10. You all have a great one, and I will see you next time on A Fan Perspective.